Welcome, dear listener, to the coziest corner of the night. This is Evelyn Blackwood, and tonight, under the calm breath of October wind, I invite you into the midnight pumpkin ritual. Halloween spirits revealed, a bedtime story unlike any other, a relaxing story, whispered slowly beneath the golden flicker of jack-o'-lanterns, where the veil between the living and the forgotten grows thin. Before we begin, take a deep breath. Inhale softly through your nose. Exhale through your mouth. Let the world outside fade like candlelight in fog. Feel the weight of your day slip away. You are safe here, in this quiet space, wrapped in calm darkness, where every word guides you toward stillness. Now, close your eyes. Picture the coziest autumn night, the gentle scent of burning wood, the distant sound of wind chimes swaying above a sleepy porch. Somewhere beyond that sound, a road winds into the heart of a forgotten town called Eldon Hollow. Eldon Hollow isn't on most maps anymore. It was one of those colonial towns built before the Revolution, where the fields still breathed with old secrets and the church bell rings, even when no one pulls the rope. Every October 31st, the townspeople gather near the old courthouse steps. They call it the Midnight Pumpkin Ritual, a celebration said to honor the spirits of the harvest, a link between the living and those long gone. A young journalist named Daniel Cross had come here, chasing a whisper of folklore. His editor in Boston had called it a quaint local Halloween custom, but Daniel felt something deeper, the pull of history, of voices unrecorded. He had a habit of hearing what others ignored, especially when it came from the past. As he walked through Eldon Hollow, he noticed how the town glowed differently. Each house lit a single pumpkin by the door, not carved with faces, but symbols, old sigils, etched by hand. Some were crooked, some faint, but all seemed to watch. The air smelled of rain and cider. Children's laughter echoed from somewhere unseen, blending with the rustle of dying leaves. At the heart of the square stood an enormous pumpkin, almost human-sized, placed atop an ancient stone pedestal. Its lights shimmered like warm amber through mist. Around it, the townsfolk moved silently, each holding a small candle. No one spoke. They simply waited, eyes fixed on the clock tower above. When the hands aligned at midnight, the wind stopped. Daniel lifted his recorder, but before he could press the button, he heard it, a low hum. Not quite human. It came from the pumpkin itself. The carved lines began to glow brighter, pulsating gently like a heartbeat. The mist thickened, and for a moment the world tilted into stillness. Then came the whispers, soft, distant, layered, names he didn't recognize, prayers in a language older than English, and among them a child's laughter, sweet, echoing, yet oddly hollow. Daniel took a step back, but something compelled him to stay. He watched as the townsfolk lifted their candles higher, faces lit from below. Their expressions were peaceful, almost serene, as if they were listening too. Then an elderly woman approached him. Her eyes were pale gray, reflecting the flicker of the central pumpkin. "You hear them too," she murmured. "The ones left beneath the soil. They remember every story we've forgotten. Her voice trembled between comfort and warning. Before Danielle could reply, the church bell struck once low and deep. Every flame wavered, the mist stirred, and from the shadows behind the courthouse, something moved. Not a ghost, not Keith, but a presence tall, cloaked in the shimmer of fog and candlelight. The woman whispered, "He comes to collect the truth we buried." Daniel's heart slowed, matching the rhythm of the bell. He realized then, this wasn't a ritual for the dead. It was a gathering of memory and guilt. The pumpkin light flickered again, and for a heartbeat, he saw his own reflection inside it. Older, unfamiliar, and weeping. The whispers returned, softer now, almost soothing. The townsfolk closed their eyes. The wind resumed its song. The ritual was not over, merely awakened. As the story fades, allow yourself to drift into a peaceful sleep. This has been Evelyn Blackwood from Midnight Murmurs Radio, your companion through the coziest corners of the night. Good night, and sweet dreams beneath the pumpkin light. Asterisk some stories don't begin when you arrive. They begin when the night decides you're ready to remember. This is Evelyn Blackwood, your voice in the quiet dark. Let your body sink deeper into stillness. Breathe softly in through the nose, out through the lips, and let the weight of your thoughts drift away like autumn leaves carried by a sleepy wind. Tonight, we return to Eldon Hollow, to the place where pumpkins burn not for joy, but remembrance. Dot after the bell's last echo, Daniel stood frozen. The townsfolk were gone. The courtyard that moments ago shimmered with orange light was empty. Only the great pumpkin remained, its glow faint, trembling. The mist had thickened, curling around his boots like breath from an unseen mouth. He thought of the old woman's words. They remember every story we've forgotten. Daniel turned toward Main Street, but the town no longer looked the same. The gas lamps had vanished. In their place, lanterns swaged, not electric, but old-fashioned, glass panes clouded by soot. Inside each one flickered a blue flame, cold and unsteady. He followed their line, like a breadcrumb trail through fog. Every step echoed. The air carried the scent of damp soil and burnt sugar, the lingering perfume of Halloween night. Somewhere far off, a violin played, soft and slow, its notes bending like sighs. He found himself before a house that seemed half asleep, its shutters drawn, its windows breathing a faint amber light. There was a name etched into the stone, Hollow's End Orphanage, 1794. A forgotten building, long abandoned, wrapped in ivy and grief. The door creaked open without touch. Inside, the air was heavy with aged dust and candle wax, the ghosts of children's laughter. He stepped in quietly, as if not to wake the memories that slept there. On the wall hung dozens of carved pumpkins, preserved like portraits. Each bore a symbol, not a face, runes shaped like moons, rivers, eyes. Some looked peaceful, others restless. Daniel raised his recorder. Eldon Hollow, abandoned orphanage, possibly connected to the ritual, he whispered. His voice trembled as the red light blinked. Then a soft hum, like a lullaby, hummed through a closed door. It came from upstairs. A melody, simple, fragile, familiar. Familiar? He remembered hearing it once from an old recording about the Salem orphan fires of 1810. An event never explained. Dozens of children lost. No graves. Only pumpkins placed in their honor each year. He climbed the stairs. The sound grew clearer. A child's voice, humming. And when he reached the landing, he saw them. Lanterns. Dozens of them, each one glowing faintly blue, hanging in perfect rows along the ceiling. Inside every lantern, shadows flickered, silhouettes of small hands pressed against glass. Daniel froze, breath caught in his chest, and then, as if hearing him, every lantern went dark. Silence. A silence so deep it seemed to swallow the heartbeat of the world. Then, one by one, the lanterns reignited, not blue this time, but gold, warm, gentle, and a voice calm, almost maternal, whispered beside his ear. They were the first ones, Daniel. The forgotten children. The ritual began for them, not to summon, but to remember. He turned, but no one stood there. Only the glow of the lanterns swaying slowly in unison, like breathing. Daniel's pulse slowed. Something deep within him, fear, wonder, empathy, began to soften. He realized this ritual wasn't superstition. It was grief turned into memory, sorrow woven into light. He looked down the staircase and for a moment saw the townsfolk again, not as they were now, but centuries ago. Mothers carrying pumpkins through smoke, children singing as they carved protection runes into the skins, men lighting candles for every name lost to hunger, fire, or fever. And then, in the flicker of the last lantern, Daniel saw a reflection, his own face, younger, as a boy, a memory he hadn't visited in years. He had once lived near Salem. He too had lost someone in an October fire. Was that why the story had called to him? He stepped closer, whispered softly, "I remember," and the lanterns glowed brighter, a soft, golden chorus of relief. The melody returned, now joined by 100 small voices, singing in harmony, not hauntingly, but peacefully, a lullaby for the lost, and for those who still listen. As the story fades, let the sound of those lanterns guide you toward the coziest, most peaceful sleep. You are safe. You are warm. You are remembered. This has been Evelyn Blackwood from Midnight Murmurs Radio, whispering you gently into dreams. This is Evelyn Blackwood, and you are still with me, drifting deeper into the calm. Let your breath find its rhythm again. Slow, quiet, peaceful. Inhale through your nose. Exhale through your lips. Let the soft pulse of night settle in your chest. Tonight we continue Daniel's quiet descent into the forgotten heart of Eldon Hollow. After the lanterns dimmed, he lingered in the orphanage's upper hall, surrounded by silence thick as velvet. Dust floated in thin ribbons of moonlight filtering through broken shutters. He felt the air breathe, faint and steady, as though the house itself was alive. On a crooked desk at the end of the hall lay a small leather-bound journal, its cover burnt and edges brittle, smelling faintly of smoke and apple wood. The initials A were carved into its surface. Daniel opened it gently, careful not to tear the fragile pages. Inside, he found ink faded to sepia, the handwriting looping elegantly, the script of another century. It began with a prayer. To the ones who sleep beneath the harvest fields, may our light keep you warm. The next lines trembled, written by a hand unsure yet determined. October 30th, 1810. The fire took them again. We placed the pumpkins as guardians, carved with the signs of mercy. If the ritual is forgotten, they will wonder. Daniel's breath slowed as he read on. The entries spoke of a fever that swept through Eldon Hollow, leaving dozens of children orphaned. The townsfolk, fearing disease and divine punishment, locked them inside the orphanage to contain the sickness. It burned that night, and no one came. Only the harvest pumpkins remained glowing until dawn. From Tachir, the people began carving sigils instead of faces, believing the pumpkins would carry the children's souls to rest. The ritual became both prayer and penance. Daniel turned another page, and a brittle leaf fell out, a pressed sprig of sage, blackened with age. Beneath it, a drawing. The same symbol carved on the great pumpkin in the square. A circle enclosing an open eye, with roots spreading downward like veins. Beneath the symbol were 7 names, each ending with the same surname, Holloway, the town's founders. Daniel realized the Holloway family must have created the ritual, not as a celebration, but as a confession. The final entry read, "If the bell stops, Te Wilwaki. If the pumpkins dim, we must remember, or they will come." His pulse slowed, but not from fear, from understanding. The town had built its peace on guilt, its beauty on grief, carefully tended like a garden. He looked up and saw through the cracked window the faint glow of dawn brushing the mist. But the pumpkins outside were still burning. He left the orphanage quietly, the journal clutched against his chest. As he stepped into the cold morning, he felt the faint hum of the earth beneath him. Not sound, but vibration, like a memory stirring. The main street of Eldon Hollow was empty again, but something was different. The air was gentler. The fog moved slower, as if the night itself was reluctant to leave. Daniel walked toward the square, where the great pumpkin now burned softer, its glow more golden than before. He placed the journal beside it, whispering a quiet thank you to whoever still listened. The wind responded with a sigh that rustled through the dead leaves. He could almost hear the faint laughter of children carried with it. Not eerie this time, but light, free. And then, through the stillness, he noticed something carved into the stone beneath the pedestal. A line hidden under years of soot. "When you remember, we rest." The words felt like a heartbeat. The ritual was never meant to summon or to frighten. It was a bridge between those who stayed and those who left. A promise that no memory would vanish if someone cared enough to listen. Daniel sat by the pumpkin for a long while, eyes half closed, letting the warmth of its flicker melt the chill in his hands. For the first time, he didn't feel like a visitor. He felt like part of the remembering. The morning sun began to rise. touching the rooftops of Eldon Hollow, painting them in soft amber. Somewhere a church bell rang once, low and slow, not warning, not mourning, but release. The hum beneath the ground faded into quiet peace. Daniel closed his eyes, feeling the weight of sleepless nights drift away. The story had found its listener, and the restless had found their silence. And as the last candle burned out, Evelyn's voice came to you again, softer now, almost a whisper. As the story fades, allow yourself to drift into a peaceful sleep. The coziest dreams await you beyond the veil of sound. You are safe. You are calm. You are home. This is Evelyn Blackwood from Midnight Murmurs Radio, guiding you gently into the quiet. Good night, dear listener. Sleep well beneath the pumpkin light. Asterisk. This is Evelyn Blackwood, and you are still listening to Midnight Murmurs Radio. Take a slow breath now, gentle and deep, feeling your body sink further into comfort. The night outside your window is calm, and the story continues to unfold like a candle flame steady in still air. Daniel left the square of Eldon Hollow with the dawn behind him and the mist curling like silk around his feet. The journal he had found now rested inside his coat, close to his heart, its weight strangely comforting. The town was quiet again, almost too quiet, as if it had folded itself back into memory. The road that led out of Eldon Hollow was narrow and lined with old sycamore trees. Their trunks were twisted, their roots cracking the stone beneath, and between them glowed the faint shapes of carved pumpkins, smaller now, dimmer, but still alive with ember light. Daniel noticed that each one bore a mark, not the sigils of protection he'd ashamed but initial pairs of letters carved in small, uncertain strokes. Lovers, families, maybe friends' names, tied to those who had once lived here. He felt as though he was walking through a corridor of remembrance, each step stirring a whisper beneath the soil. The air had the scent of rain and earth, a fragrance that carried warmth and sorrow. Somewhere beyond the trees, a river murmured, its sound weaving with the hum of insects waking in the pale light. Daniel's mind wandered back to the journal's final words. If the bell stops, they will wake. He thought of the bell that had rung as the sun rose. Maybe the town had been waiting for someone to listen, for someone to understand. The fog thinned as he walked, and through the pale veil he saw something ahead, a bridge of old wood and iron, crossing the river. On one side, the town fading behind him. On the other, a sign almost hidden by vines, Salem County Line. He smiled softly, realizing how close he had been to home without knowing. The bridge groaned beneath his steps, and the wind carried a low whistle through its rails. Halfway across, Daniel stopped. On the wooden planks carved into the grain were dozens of small pumpkins drawn by hand, overlapping like an old pattern repeated through years. Beneath them, a phrase etched deeper than the rest. Every road remembers its travelers. Crouched, running his fingers along the grooves, feeling the warmth still lingering there, as though the wood itself held a pulse. Then the air shifted. The river below stilled. The mist thickened again, rising like breath from the water, and from that breath came faint shapes, translucent, shimmering in pale gold. The children from the orphanage, their outlines flickering like reflections, standing at the river's edge. They didn't speak. They simply watched him with eyes calm and endless, holding small lanterns in their hands. One of them stepped forward, a girl with braids and a dress the color of autumn leaves. She smiled, and in her voice was both a whisper and a lullaby. "You remembered?" she said. Daniel nodded, unsure if he spoke aloud or only thought the word back. The girl lifted her lantern and placed it gently on the wooden railing. The flame inside burned with a golden light that didn't flicker. Around her, the other children did the same, one by one, until the bridge shimmered with warmth and quiet beauty. The light reflected on the river, turning its surface into a mirror of stars. Then the girl whispered again, "Now we can go." The lantern's light began to drift upward, each one rising slowly like fireflies carried by unseen wind, dissolving into the dawn sky. Daniel felt tears in his eyes, not from fear, but peace. The wind brushed his face like a hand. He whispered into the empty air, "Good night," and the words seemed to echo forever, soft as falling ash. When the last glow vanished, the mist cleared completely. The world was still. Birds began to sing. Daniel crossed the bridge, and as he stepped onto the road beyond, he looked back one last time. Eldon Hollow was gone. In its place stood only the fields, golden with morning lights. He took a deep breath, feeling warmth spread through him. The journal in his coat pulsed once, faintly, as if alive, then quieted. Maybe the ritual hadn't been about ghosts at all, but about forgiveness, the kind we owe to ourselves when we finally listen to the past. He continued walking, the sound of his steps merging with the rhythm of the wind. The road curved gently through the hills, and for the first time in a long time, Daniel felt light, unburdened, as though every shadow had finally found rest. Evelyn's voice returns to you now, soft as velvet, a murmur at the edge of sleep. As the story fades, allow yourself to drift into the coziest, most peaceful dreams. The night remembers kindness. The earth remembers peace. And you, dear listener, are safe within both. This is Evelyn Blackwood from Midnight Murmurs Radio, guiding you through the last glow of the pumpkin light. Close your eyes now, breathe softly, and let go. Good night. This is Evelyn Blackwood, and you are still with me, deep in the soft current of night. Take another breath, slow and steady. Let your shoulders fall, your thoughts quiet. Imagine yourself floating, weightless, between waking and dreaming. This story continues. Weeks passed after Daniel left Eldon Hollow. The days in Boston grew shorter. The skies turned gray with November rain. The city's rhythm felt louder than before, filled with engines, voices, the ceaseless hum of modern life. But in the quiet hours before dawn, when the streets were wet and glimmering with reflections, Daniel would sometimes hear the faint toll of a bell that no church claimed. It wasn't loud nor near. It came like a memory carried on wind, slow and distant, echoing beneath the surface of consciousness. He often woke before sunrise, the scent of damp earth and pumpkin still lingering in his mind. The journal he had taken from Eldon Hollow sat on his desk, unopened since that day. He couldn't explain why, but part of him felt that reading it again might break the calm that had settled around his heart. The world outside his apartment window felt colder, emptier. But inside, something had changed. He noticed warmth in smaller things. The way candlelight touched the spines of books. The way rain traced lines down the glass. The way silence seemed alive. One night, unable to sleep, Daniel lit a candle and sat by his desk. The flame wavered gently, painting his face in gold. He opened the journal to its first page and traced the ink with his finger. As he did, the candlelight flickered, and for a moment he thought he saw a reflection in the glass. Not his own, but a child's face smiling faintly behind him. He didn't turn. He simply whispered, "You're safe." The reflection faded. The air felt warm again. He turned the page and found something he hadn't noticed before. A small, folded note pressed between the back cover and the final entry. It was newer, written in a different hand, more recent. It said, for the listener who remembers, there was no signature, no date, just those words. Daniel sat in stillness for a long time. He didn't understand how it had been placed there or who had written it, but he knew it wasn't meant to frighten him. It was a message of continuation, an invitation. He looked toward the window. The rain had stopped. Across the street, a cafe's sign flickered. Its light reflected in the puddles like dozens of tiny candles. He thought of the pumpkins, of the lanterns that had lifted into the sky over Eldon Hollow. He realized then that remembrance was not confined to one place. It lived wherever someone cared enough to see it. He smiled faintly, closed the journal, and whispered again, "I remember." The candle's flame steadied, tall and calm. Eliande back eyes half closed, listening to the rhythm of his breath. It felt almost like the hum he had heard beneath the earth that night, a soft, endless vibration of life continuing. The city outside was quiet now. Even the distant bell had faded into the sound of rain returning. Daniel closed his eyes completely and saw the bridge again. The children's lanterns floating upward, disappearing into morning light. He knew then that the ritual wasn't over. It had simply changed form. It had followed him, not as a haunting, but as peace carried in memory. As long as he remembered, the light would never go out. And perhaps that was what the Holloway family had always intended. Not to keep the dead from wandering, but to keep the living from forgetting that love and loss are the same thread, just woven from opposite ends. The candle burned lower, wax pooling like quiet rivers of amber. Outside, the horizon began to pale. Dawn was coming. Daniel whispered one last time, "Good night, Eldon Hollow," before letting his head rest upon his arm, eyes closing, body sinking into the soft tide of sleep. The journal lay open beside him, its pages glowing faintly in the candle's final light. The flame flickered once, twice, then steadied into a still, golden line. The hum of the city grew distant, and only Evelyn's voice remained, slow, calm. The voice of the night itself. As the story fades, allow yourself to drift into the coziest, most peaceful dreams. The light you carry is your own, and it will never dim. You are safe. You are calm. You are home. This is Evelyn Blackwood, whispering you toward rest from Midnight Murmurs Radio. Good night, dear listener. Sleep deeply beneath the whisper of the flame. Asterisk, this is Evelyn Blackwood, and you are listening to the final whispers of Chapter 1. The air is still, and the night stretches wide like an endless sigh over the sleeping city. Let your breath follow mine, slow and deep, as we drift together into the last lantern's glow. When Daniel awoke that morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains in thin golden threads, dust floating like tiny spirits caught between dreams and daybreak. The candle had burned out completely, leaving behind a small pool of hardened wax, shaped uncannily like a leaf, or perhaps a flame frozen in time. The journal remained opened beside him, its final page faintly luminous, as if holding on to the last trace of night. He closed it gently, placed it in his satchel, and stepped outside. The city felt changed, or maybe he did. The sound of his footsteps on the wet pavement echoed softly, like the ticking of a distant clock marking the rhythm of something ancient still turning beneath the modern world. As he walked, he noticed small things others did not. A pumpkin carved on a windowsill long past Halloween, a flickering candle in an abandoned shop, a child's laughter echoing briefly, though no child could be seen. It was as if the ritual of remembrance had rippled outward, weaving through the city, finding new homes in the hearts of those who felt unseen. When night came again, Daniel sat by his window with a single candle lit. The sky outside was deep violet, and clouds drifted like slow rivers of ink. He thought of Eldon Hollow, the crooked gravestones, the fog curling over the bridge, the soft humming of the children's choir. He whispered the same words he had heard in his dream, words older than the town itself. To remember is to keep the light. As the flame wavered, a soft wind brushed his cheek, though the window was closed. He smiled, because he understood now. The ritual was not meant to summon spirits, but to awaken them, the fragments of love, loss, and memory that linger quietly in all who dare to listen. And that night, for the first time in weeks, he slept deeply, dreamlessly, as if the world itself had drawn a long, peaceful breath. Far away, in Eldon Hollow, mist rose again over the hollowed fields. The old church bell, silent for decades, tolled once not in warning, but in farewell. And somewhere beneath the earth, among roots and time-worn stones, the last pumpkin lantern flickered back to life, its light gentle and golden, carrying whispers of those who remembered. The flame did not burn. It breathed, and in that breath, the line between the living and the lost dissolved into something tender, eternal. This is Evelyn Blackwood, closing Chapter 1 of the Midnight Pumpkin Ritual. As you drift toward sleep, let the echoes of this story settle softly around you, peaceful, calming, magical, the coziest corner of night, where memory and comfort meet. You are safe, you are warm, and the lantern still burns for you until the next whisper. Good night, dear listener. Sleep well, and may your dreams be gentle. This is Evelyn Blackwood, and tonight we return to Eldon Hollow, where autumn lingers like a ghost that refuses to fade. The story begins once more under a sky the color of rusted copper, where crows drift in slow, patient circles above the hollow fields. The wind carries the faint smell of rain and burnt leaves, a scent both peaceful and sorrowful, like the memory of a childhood dream slipping through your fingers. Take a deep breath with me, dear listener, in and out. Let your body soften into the bed beneath you. Let your heart beat slow, and let the warmth of the night draw you closer into this quiet, forgotten world. Years have passed since Daniel last walked the streets of Eldon Hollow, but the town had not truly changed. The same crooked lampposts leaned into the fog. The same church steeple pierced the heavy sky. Yet, beneath the bridge that crossed the hollow creek, something new waited. Or perhaps it had always been there, waiting for him. Locusts whispered about the children beneath the bridge, faint voices singing at night, echoing through the stone arches, their lullaby rising only when the moon was veiled. Some said they were the spirits of those lost during the Great Fire of 1893, when the harvest festival had turned to tragedy. Others believed they were echoes of a cruel ritual meant to appease restless souls buried beneath the fields. Daniel had come to learn the truth, though part of him feared what he might find. The bridge stood at the edge of the woods, its stones dark with moss, its arches carved with symbols almost erased by time. As he knelt beside the water, he heard it soft, rhythmic, like the breath of children asleep beneath the current. The melody was simple, tender, heartbreakingly pure. He closed his eyes, letting the sound guide him into stillness. The world above began to fade. The ticking of clocks, the hum of distant cars, the weight of the modern world. All that remained was the lullaby and the cool whisper of the creek. He saw, for a moment, a vision. Children in worn clothes, holding lanterns carved from small pumpkins, standing in a circle by the bridge. Their eyes reflected candlelight, not haunting, but hopeful. They were waiting, perhaps not for rescue, but for remembrance. And Daniel realized that this was the true ritual, not one of fear, but of memory. The pumpkins were not offerings to dark spirits, but gentle beacons for those who had been forgotten by time. When he opened his eyes again, the song had vanished, leaving behind only the sound of the wind through the reeds. The bridge loomed above him, ancient and silent, as though holding its breath. He whispered softly, "I remember you." And for the briefest heartbeat, the candle flame within one of the hollow pumpkins flickered to life, a tiny, golden pulse in the darkness. The reflection trembled on the water, warm and fragile, before fading once more into night. And somewhere, beyond the veil of sleep and shadow, a voice like a child sighed, "Thank you." This is Evelyn Blackwood, whispering again through the quiet air of midnight. As you listen, take a slow, deep breath. In and out. Let the rhythm of your heartbeat guide you deeper into the coziest corners of your imagination. Tonight, Daniel wanders back through Eldon Hollow, the town where fog and history sleep entwined. The faint glow of street lamps bends through the mist like threads of amber silk. He carries a journal beneath his arm, the same one he found years ago. Though tonight he feels its weight differently, as if the stories inside are breathing again. In the town's old library, a building that once served as a courthouse during the witch trials, the scent of dust and ink lingers like perfume from another century. The librarian, an elderly woman with silver hair pinned neatly behind her ear, greets him with a knowing smile. Her voice is quiet but steady, as though she has spoken the same words countless times before. "You've come for the lost pages," she says. Daniel hesitates, his pulse quickening. "I don't know what you mean." The woman's eyes soften. "You do. she whispers. Every year, when the pumpkins burn, someone comes looking. It's the way of the ritual. She leads him to the back room, where shelves curve like the ribs of a great ship. There, among forgotten records and brittle maps, lies a box marked with a single word, remembrance. Inside are fragments of parchment, each bearing symbols carved in the same looping script found beneath the bridge. They tell of a night long before the fire of 1893, a harvest moon, when the townsfolk gathered to honor the children who had vanished during the famine. They carved pumpkins not to ward off evil, but to guide lost souls back to warmth. Over time, fear replaced kindness. The ritual was twisted into something darker, until its meaning was buried beneath centuries of guilt. As Daniel reads, a low hum fills the air, not from the building, but from beneath it, deep and resonant, like the earth remembering a forgotten song. The librarian closes her eyes, mouthing the same old prayer. They only wake when someone listens, she murmurs. Daniel feels a chill trace his spine. The room seems to breathe. The flame in the lamp trembles, and the shadow of each book stretches just a little too long. The old woman opens her eyes again and says, "If you wish to finish what they began, you must go back to the bridge before midnight. That's when the veil opens. That's when they call." Her words echo softly, dissolving into the hush of turning pages. Daniel nods, though he feels both dread and calm, as if the truth itself is something sacred, not to be feared. Ethangsir places the journal in his coat and steps back into the cool night. Outside, the town is silent, wrapped in mist that glows faintly beneath the lantern light. The path to the bridge seems longer than before, lined with fallen leaves that whisper beneath his boots, and somewhere in the distance he hears the faint, familiar song of the children. Softer now, almost like a lullaby, carried by the wind. It is peaceful, calming, magical, and as he walks toward the sound, Daniel realizes that the story he's following isn't about ghosts at all. It's about promises, the ones broken and the ones waiting patiently to be kept. This is Evelyn Blackwood, and you are listening to the sound of midnight unfolding. Let the quiet of the hours settle around you like a soft blanket. Take a slow breath in, and as you exhale, feel the world grow still, peaceful, and infinite. Tonight, Daniel walks towards the bridge again. The moon hangs low, heavy, and amber, its reflection trembling upon the dark water like a second world waiting beneath the surface. The air is cool and damp, scented faintly of wet earth and smoke, and every sound, the rustle of the reeds, the sigh of the wind, feels deliberate, as if the night itself is alive and listening. He crosses the field slowly, the grass whispering against his boots. In his hand, he carries a small lantern carved from a pumpkin. Its face simply two eyes and a hollow smile, glowing softly from within. Each step feels like a heartbeat, carrying him closer to the place where the veil thins. When he reaches the bridge, the world changes. The air grows thick, almost honey-like, heavy with silence. The stones glisten with dew, and from beneath the arch, mist begins to rise. First, a curl, then a rolling wave that shrouds the ground in silver. The song of the children returns, distant at first, then nearer, clear enough that he can hear the words. It isn't a song of mourning, as he once thought, but of memory, a lullaby for the forgotten. He kneels at the edge of the bridge, placing his lantern among the reeds. Its light flickers, dim, then strong again, pulsing gently in rhythm with the melody. Beneath the surface of the water, faint lights begin to bloom, tiny orbs that drift upward like fireflies trapped in glass. They swirl together, forming the shapes of children, translucent, luminous, each holding a small pumpkin that glows from within. They stand in a circle beneath the bridge, their eyes calm, unafraid. Daniel whispers, "I remember you." The words dissolve into the mist like breath. The children lift their lanterns higher, and the water mirrors their light, turning the entire creek into a ribbon of gold. For a moment, he feels a warmth spread through his chest. Not fear, but peace. The coziest, most tender calm, as if the night itself were embracing him. Then the song shifts. The melody falters, trembling, as though caught by sorrow. One of the children steps forward, her face pale and kind. The ritual was never meant to bind. Her voice echoes softly, only to release. But they forgot. They sealed us here, in memory's shadow. Daniel reaches out, though his hand passes through air and light. How can I help? He whispers. Whispers. The girl's gaze turns upward toward the bridge, where carvings faintly gleam, old runes that have lain dormant for generations. Light them, she says, with truth. The mist curls tighter round him, and the wind begins to hum low, a vibration deep in his bones. He takes the journal from his coat, opens it to the final blank page, and begins to write not words of history or guilt, but names. The names of those forgotten, those who vanished, those who were never mourned. Each name glows softly on the page, and as he writes, the runes above him ignite, one by one, bathing the bridge in golden fire. The children smile, their forms growing fainter, lighter, until they dissolve into drifting embers that rise toward the moon. The creek grows still again. The mist fades. The only sound left is the slow, patient trickle of water beneath the stones. Daniel closes the book, his hands trembling not from fear, but from reverence. The ritual, once a curse, had become a blessing. The bridge no longer belonged to the dead. It belonged to memory, to all who remembered. He lifts the lantern once more, watching its small flame dance against the wind, and whispers, "Rest now." And somewhere far beyond the reach of sight, 1,000 tiny lights answer in silence. Asterisk. This is Evelyn Blackwood, guiding you once again through the hush between waking and dreams. Let your body rest. Inhale slowly and exhale gently. Allow your thoughts to drift like fallen leaves upon a quiet stream. Tonight, we follow Daniel after the ritual, when the bridge has fallen silent. Yet its echoes still move through the air like unseen ripples of light. The morning after, Elden Hallow looked almost ordinary. The mist had lifted. The trees glowed amber and gold. Children played in the streets, their laughter clear and alive. Yet beneath that peace, Daniel sensed something tender, as if the town itself was exhaling after a long, haunted breath. He returned to his small rented room above the old general store, its windows overlooking the hollow fields. The journal rested on the table, closed now, though faint warmth still pulsed through its cover. When he touched it, the room seemed to hush. Somewhere outside, a wind chime sang 3 soft notes, the same melody from the children's lullaby. He smiled, not frightened, but deeply moved. That night, as he drifted into sleep, the dreams began. They came softly, like whispers through candlelight. He found himself walking through the fields beneath a silver moon, surrounded by flickering lanterns that floated above the ground like tiny spirits at play. The children were there again, whole, laughing, their faces no longer hollow, but bright with peace. They danced in slow circles, their voices rising like mist into the night, and among them stood the little girl from the bridge. She looked up at him and said, "The light remembers." He wanted to ask what she meant, but the dream shifted. The fields gave way to a vast ocean of fog, and beyond it stood the silhouette of the old church. Its bell tower leaned toward the moon, and from its windows a dim orange glow flickered, pulsing like a heartbeat. He heard footsteps echoing down the hall. One pair, slow and steady, coming closer. Then silence. The dream dissolved into darkness, and Daniel woke with the faint scent of smoke in the air. The candle on his bedside table had gone out. Tug, didn't he remember lighting it? He sat for a while, listening to the stillness. The journal lay open again, though he hadn't touched it. On the final page, words had appeared in his own handwriting. The ritual is not over. He traced the letters with his fingertip. They were warm, almost alive. The feeling was not of fear, but of calling, gentle, magnetic, irresistible. As dawn crept through the curtains, painting the walls pale gold, Daniel realized that the children's release had awakened something older, deeper. Something that now waited to be remembered, too. In the distance, the old church bell rang once, long and low, its sound spreading through the hollow like a sigh. He knew what it meant. The bridge had spoken. The ritual's heart still beat, somewhere beneath the ground, and in its rhythm, faint but constant, he heard his own. This is Evelyn Blackwood, and tonight our story drifts deeper into the heart of Eldon Hollow, where the veil between memory and truth grows thin as breath on glass. Take a slow inhale, let it settle in your chest, and exhale softly, like mist fading from the morning fields. You are safe here, surrounded by quiet, by peace, by the soft echo of distant bells. Daniel followed the sound through the sleeping town, down roads that curved like veins through the hollow. The sky was pale silver, and a faint drizzle fell, not rain, but dew shaken loose by restless clouds. The church stood at the edge of the woods, its steeple half collapsed, its stone walls streaked with age and ash. Ivy climbed its windows, wrapping around cracked glass that once glowed with the colors of saints. Now only the faintest shimmer remained, like memory refusing to let go. He pushed open the heavy door, and the hinges groaned in protest. The air inside was cool and still, carrying the faint scent of wax and damp earth. Rows of pews leaned in uneven silence, their wood swollen by years of rain. At the far end, The altar was draped in torn velvet, and beneath it, half hidden by shadow, a narrow staircase spiraled downward. The bell tolled again, soft, almost human, its echo humming through the floorboards beneath his feet. He descended slowly, lantern in hand, each step echoing like a heartbeat inside a tomb. The air grew colder, thicker. The smell of smoke, sharper now, smoke, the kind that clings to ruins and regret. At the bottom of the stairs lay a stone chamber, circular, its walls carved with runes that pulsed faintly in the lantern's glow. In the center stood a pedestal, and on it an iron bowl filled with ash. Around the pedestal, 12 pumpkins had been placed, dried, brittle, hollow, their carved faces long faded into sorrowful shapes. He knelt, brushing his fingers across the edge of the bowl. The ash was still warm. Tene saw it, a faint ember, glowing at the bottom, breathing like a sleeping heart. From the shadows, a whisper rose, soft and layered, as though many voices spoke as one. "You woke the children," it said. "But what of those who sent them?" Daniel's breath caught. The temperature dropped, and the lantern's flame bent sideways, flickering furiously. The voices grew clearer, weaving through the air like smoke. "We are the forgotten hands, the ones who carved, who feared, who burned." Faces began to form in the ash, not spectral, but human, sorrowful, their eyes glinting with old regret. These were the townsfolk of long ago, those who had twisted remembrance into punishment, who had turned kindness into curse. The ritual was meant to heal, te murmura, but we bound it in guilt. Daniel's lantern dimmed, and for a heartbeat, the chamber pulsed with darkness. Then, instinctively, he opened the journal once more. The names he had written still glowed faintly, and as the light touched the ash, the whispers soft, the air filled with a low, vibrating hum, mournful, yet soothing. The ash began to shift, swirling upward in slow spirals, forming threads of light that stretched toward the ceiling like roots finding the sun. The carved pumpkins flickered, one by one, until the chamber was awash in a soft orange glow. In that glow, Daniel saw not ghosts, but memories. Families huddled together, hands clasped, faces illuminated by candlelight. It was not horror he felt, but release. The last ember flared, bright as dawn. Tembanise. Silence returned, but it was no longer heavy. It was peaceful, like the stillness after a prayer. Daniel closed the journal, pressed it to his chest, and whispered, "You are forgiven." A gentle breeze swept through the chamber, carrying the scent of autumn leaves and rain. Somewhere above, the old bell rang once more. Not a warning, but a benediction. Asterisk, this is Evelyn Blackwood, whispering to you from the quiet heart of midnight, as our story finds its final breath beneath the pale dawn sky. Take one last deep breath in, all it gently, and exhale, letting every sound dissolve into calm. Daniel stepped out from beneath the ruined church as the first light crept over Eldon Hollow. The fog was lifting, curling like silk from the earth, revealing what had been hidden for centuries. Where the pumpkins once stood, now only soft patches of grass glowed faintly in the morning dew, and the scent of burnt ash had faded into that of rain and soil. The town, silent for generations, seemed to exhale, The houses that had once felt like husks now carried warmth behind their cracked windows. A single blackbird landed on the church's crossbeam, its song trembling through the quiet air like a thread of forgiveness. Daniel turned back one last time, feeling the echo of voices, not haunting now, but humming, alive, like a lullaby sung by the past. He knew the ritual had never been about summoning spirits, but remembering them, about giving peace to what history had buried. As he walked toward the road that led out of Eldon Hollow, the journal pressed to his chest. The pages fluttered softly, though there was no wind. It was as if the words themselves were sighing in gratitude. The morning sun stretched across the horizon, spilling gold over the wet grass. And for the first time since he arrived, Daniel smiled. His reflection shimmered in the puddles along the road. And for a moment, another face shimmered beside his, a young girl with a carved pumpkin in her hands, her eyes bright, her smile free. He didn't flinch. He simply whispered, "Rest now." She nodded, then faded into light. The road wound through the valley, and each step felt lighter, as though the weight of every forgotten name had lifted from his shoulders. When he reached the ridge, he turned back once more. The fog had fully cleared. The town looked smaller now, almost peaceful, its rooftops glowing like embers cooling after a long night's fire. Somewhere in that stillness, the bell rang once more, not in mourning, but in remembrance. As its echo drifted into silence, Evelyn's voice, soft as autumn wind, returned. And so, dear listener, as the dawn remembers what the night tried to forget, may you too find stillness in the corners of your heart. The ghosts we carry are often just the stories that needed to be told. A pause, then, more softly, still, as the story fades, allow yourself to drift. Dream. To rest. The world outside can wait. For now, this is your moment of peace. The gentle hum of rain returned, blending with the slow crackle of an old vinyl record. Evelyn's voice became almost a breath. Good night, dear wanderer. Sleep well, and when you wake, remember, even in darkness, there is always a light waiting to be seen.